Story 11. Mind Games. Posted on December 8, 2021. Today, I present to you the 11th part of the Fat Tinkerbell series. The following is a true story experienced by the author. All characters are still alive and kicking to this day. Recap. Now to recap on our previous story, Fat Tinkerbell had gotten into serious trouble with her literal big boss, the king. He had told her that she's been caught using her phone in a video. That he's heard that she's been gossiping about her co-workers. That gossiping is an incriminating offense. Then Fat Tinkerbell replies with, "I don't remember doing so," when mentioning the gossiping. The king then immediately replied with, "Well, I doubt it. When you're on your phone standing around." Soon Fat Tinkerbell apologized and she was forgiven for everything. She had no punishment done upon her. At the end of it all, Fat Tinkerbell knew she was in the wrong, that it truly was her doing, that she deserved to be punished. But overall she felt embarrassed, ashamed of herself, and even exposed. Her actions were now all in a video. A famous video that Green-Eyed Snake took with her phone. Green-Eyed Snake had an agenda against Fat Tinkerbell. Fat Tinkerbell had previously snitched and exposed Green-Eyed Snake about how she goes and sleeps with the soldiers of the maze. Fat Tinkerbell made Green-Eyed Snake look really bad in her little station with all the other girls in there. But let's begin this story. Mind Games. As we follow our girl Fat Tinkerbell on her very wild adventures, I recommend y'all hold onto your seatbelts cause it just gets juicier. For those who are new here, well, basically Fat Tinkerbell is the subject of bullying and teasing at her job, her brand new job where she had gotten a crush on her manager. But recently on our later stories, Fat Tinkerbell has done some very questionable actions against people in the name of love. When Fat Tinkerbell was exposing Green-Eyed Snake, she used words as if to make herself look innocent and unaware of the true story behind Green-Eyed Snake and RoboCop. She would tell a new girl about how she's heard that some girl inside of there, who has green eyes and short hair, goes out with the soldiers in that job. And that Fat Tinkerbell doesn't know who it is, but that's what she's heard. Fat Tinkerbell had not used names, she had not used much context, thinking that it would save her from any trouble, whilst also making Green-Eyed Snake look bad. Fat Tinkerbell overall had done this out of jealousy. Fat Tinkerbell was angry with her life, with her reality, that she felt the need to ruin others' reality. Well, now that Fat Tinkerbell has gotten exposed back at this point from Green-Eyed Snake herself. There was now a video of Fat Tinkerbell going around. It was very likely that Green-Eyed Snake was friends with Weed Guy or Harry Potter, or RoboCop or many other stupid soldiers. Green-Eyed Snake had been working at that maze since way back as well as many of those soldiers. Fat Tinkerbell was the one who was new still. So when thinking about it, it was also likely that Green-Eyed Snake had shared the video with Weed Guy and RoboCop and Harry Potter at once. It was beyond likely. It takes 2 clicks on one's phone to send and share a video. The following weeks that Fat Tinkerbell returned to work and had to clock in and work alongside all those characters. Aside from Green-Eyed Snake. Well, she had no choice but to see RoboCop's face, Weed Guy's face, Harry Potter's face, and the King's face. All those men that despised her. The only ones who could care less and were cool with Fat Tinkerbell were Angel Guy, who happens to be another one of her main supervisors, and Boss Battle, a morning supervisor. Fat Tinkerbell came into work feeling all exposed and guilty. She knew now that the king, who happens to be very handsome, had seen her being all weird in a video. She knew now that the hottest man on earth, RoboCop, could have watched that video as well. Especially since he was that woman's ex-lover. She knew now that many of those coworkers could have now watched the video as well. It was very difficult for her to see any of these characters in the eyes by now. Fat Tinkerbell tried to act as though she didn't care. Any of those characters could have watched the video. But Fat Tinkerbell was gonna act as though it didn't bother her. As a way to defend herself and to keep sane. It was a coping mechanism that she put in place to save herself from negative feelings and such. So basically she would convince herself that she had done the gossiping and the exposing as a way to show RoboCop that he is a stalker. Also to show him that by telling her that she can't have something going on with an employee from a previous story. That he was being a hypocrite as he himself had something going on with an employee in the past. Which was true. RoboCop was being a hypocrite. Those little thoughts helped Fat Tinkerbell justify her actions. Fat Tinkerbell's actions were wrong, but those characters were also wrong. In the story titled The Plan, which is Story 5, it is revealed that RoboCop had called Fat Tink into the office to tell her she can't talk to guys. When RoboCop had told Fat Tinkerbell that it looks wrong to flirt with May's employees and that she cannot be standing around like that for minutes on end. That she should keep personal relationships out of work. Well, he was being a hypocrite, because now we all know that he had literally done the exact same thing with Green-Eyed Snake. Green-Eyed Snake being also a person that still works there and still sees RoboCop's face from time to time to that date. To that very date. Maybe their relationship happened in 2018, a year ago. But it happened nonetheless. Little reminders like that kept Fat Tinkerbell from feeling too ashamed or at fault. There was also the fact that RoboCop was stalking and following Fat Tinkerbell around at work. Throughout the entire maze. So now Fat Tinkerbell would justify being a gossip girl by reminding herself of all the following, plus watching her, plus crazy location asking he's done to her. As a way to scream payback. In a way, Fat Tinkerbell has spelled payback with her actions against Green-Eyed Snake. She was able to make Green-Eyed Snake look bad and return some of the stalking RoboCop has done to her. It was a bit of a win-win. Regardless, as the days moved forth, Fat Tinkerbell had no idea how any of those supervisors would react or behave with her in the coming days or even weeks. If their attitude against her would get worse or change for the better. Weed Guy at the time had gotten to know Fat Tinkerbell a bit more, and he was a bit more of a centered, logical person as well. Even though Weed Guy was besties with RoboCop and Harry Potter, he appeared to be a very logical guy. Weed Guy was a bit younger than RoboCop and only 1 year older than Fat Tinkerbell. When Fat Tinkerbell had done the crime of exposing Green-Eyed Snake, Fat Tinkerbell had begged the Weed Guy to give her information on the video. Since he actually had informed her that she was caught in a video on her phone a day prior to her actually getting in trouble. This was not mentioned, unfortunately, in the previous story. So yes, actually. Fat Tinkerbell had been informed of the whole video disaster before the king went and told her off. She was panicking the entire day about what Weed Guy had informed her. Remember? Because RoboCop was on vacation, and Weed Guy, his nerdy twin, was covering for him. Now moving on. Fat Tinkerbell had asked Weed Guy about who was the person that took the video of her, and Weed Guy would answer with, he doesn't know. Clearly he knew, clearly he was friends with Green-Eyed Snake, who happened to be RoboCop's ex-lover, who also happened to be Harry Potter's friend. AKA, all these characters were in on it. The Weed Guy having had seen the video himself meant that RoboCop had seen the video himself, that Harry Potter had seen the video himself. Who knew who else had seen the video? But Fat Tinkerbell now acknowledged that all those characters had watched the famous video of her fat-ass self. Stood there in front of that help center desk, across from Green-Eyed Snake. Just utilizing her personal little phone with her chubby white little hands. Regardless though, Fat Tinkerbell still stood her ground with the fact that this was like payback for RoboCop being nosy and following her around. For him telling her that she can't flirt with employees at work, etc., etc. So yes, we now can acknowledge that almost all those managers have watched the famous video. As the days moved forth, something had changed. Angel Guy decided that he'd step down from being a supervisor and that he'd be a regular little soldier on Fat Tinkerbell's rank. It was unknown why this had happened. And why Angel Guy stepped down from his supervisor position. Maybe they needed an extra soldier, or maybe Angel Guy didn't want to have the responsibility of manager any longer. However, he came in one day and was no longer a manager. The king had literally moved Weed Guy to Angel Guy's place. Weed Guy had previously been a captain, which was an honor. It was said that the king promised Weed Guy more riches if he stepped down from captain into a regular manager position as a way to trick Weed Guy onto taking that position. It was a very weird, messy, sketchy situation. Fat Tinkerbell had no clue what was really happening between the managers and supervisors and RoboCops. But it was clear that King no longer wanted Weed Guy as a captain. Every time these characters came into work, however, they were always jolly and ready to get to work. It seemed as though they were all in agreement with the rank switching and such. So yes, now Weed Guy had become Fat Tinkerbell's main supervisor alongside RoboCop, who was also partly her main supervisor. The two Super Mario brothers. Luigi and Mario himself. Ha 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 ha. Fat Tinkerbell really liked Angel Guy, however, and she was truly glad that he stayed at that job with her. Angel Guy was her main manager and Fat Tinkerbell trusted him a lot of the time. He was like an older brother to her at times. And having him as a buddy coworker just was perfect for her. Weed Guy becoming her main supervisor was also good for Fat Tinkerbell. Weed Guy, as mentioned in previous stories, was the type to sit in the office all day and do nothing. So Fat Tinkerbell was happy that he was there, as her main manager, not asking for her location every second, not following her like a maniac, not driving in her area that she's driving in for no reason and just to watch her. As mentioned earlier, he was more of a logical, caring young lad. There was no stories going around of him banging the female employees of the maze and such. He was the sweet, quiet, nerdy type. Anyway, as this new change took place, and Weed Guy was now her main manager as well as RoboCop, and Angel Guy was now her co-worker, something had changed in the following weeks. Firstly, RoboCop and Angel Guy would hang out now that Angel Guy too would be one of RoboCop's little soldiers. They had time to be face to face, just sitting around talking for hours on end. One of those moments, RoboCop calls Fat Tinkerbell to enter the office. It had been almost 2 weeks since the incident of the video. Fat Tinkerbell enters the office as ordered to do so by RoboCop. She finds herself with both Angel Guy and RoboCop in the same room. These two men were sat down on a manager's seat. RoboCop on the supervisor's desk and Angel Guy on the king's desk. Both these desks were next to each other inside this tiny pathetic office. Once Fat Tinkerbell was inside the office, and Angel Guy as well as RoboCop were now both staring at her. Fat Tinkerbell felt immediately embarrassed and ashamed. She knew deep down that both of them had already watched the famous video of her. There was no reason for RoboCop to call her through the walkie-talkie and make her be inside the office at that time. Clearly RoboCop was planning to do something to Fat Tinkerbell. Or against Fat Tinkerbell. As she was now inside standing there. RoboCop and Angel Guy were both quiet. RoboCop was staring at Fat Tinkerbell like he had read her diary. It was a stare of complete surprise combined with comedy. Eyebrows raised all the way. Full-on stare. Complete silence. Immediately, however, RoboCop says, "Do you know that you sound like Dispatch," through the walkie-talkie? Fat Tinkerbell felt so confused and embarrassed. She knew that they knew of the video and her actions against Green-Eyed Snake. But RoboCop telling her that she sounds like a police officer through the walkie-talkies didn't make any sense. Fat Tinkerbell immediately stared at Angel Guy. Angel Guy too was just staring at Fat Tinkerbell, all puzzled with a look of complete surprise. However, Angel Guy's stare appeared to be more of a freaked out one, or even confused one, while RoboCop's stare was like that of comedy and surprise. RoboCop overall looked like he was about to laugh. Angel Guy just looked freaked out. Fat Tinkerbell then looked back at RoboCop. RoboCop then repeated the same sentence about how she sounds like a dispatcher or police officer through the microphones. Fat Tinkerbell then turned around to leave. She said, "No, I don't," half smiling at RoboCop, and then left. Fat Tinkerbell never felt so embarrassed in her life. She didn't know whether to escape from her job and run back home like a crybaby, or just stay there and not mind any incoming challenges. She didn't even know if that was some form of insult or joke. It had not sounded like a joke or insult or low-key bullying. The Angel Guy was not laughing. Who knew what in the sweet world that even meant at all? If you know what this means, please tell me in the comments. What made it sound overall like a pick at Fat Tinkerbell was the fact that RoboCop's face was like that of comedy, or 2 seconds about to burst laughing. All while telling her that. Fat Tinkerbell felt ultimately paranoid from that moment on. She believed she'd be bullied even more by RoboCop himself now. She believed that the little sly comments made towards her might have been bullying. She felt as if Angel Guy was in on it. That all those weird supervisors were all in on it. As soon as Fat Tinkerbell noticed that Angel Guy had now left the office, she approached him and questioned him on the existence of such video. Angel Guy, with his sweet face, casually and calmly answered that he's never seen any video of her. He then said that he too was confused at the comment that RoboCop had said about her sounding like a female police officer through the walkie-talkie. Fat Tinkerbell felt a bit more calm by acknowledging that Angel Guy didn't know what that was all about either. Fat Tinkerbell decided that if it was once again bullying on the behalf of RoboCop, that she'd stand her ground and not let such a person of very low morals put her down. From that moment on, she had decided that she'd keep away from hot RoboCop and the nasty Green-Eyed Snake and the Weed Guy, as well as Harry Potter. She decided she'd be a great employee and be better than any of those type of people. She hoped to behave in an honorable manner. As the days moved forth and Angel Guy was now an employee, and Weed Guy was now a supervisor, a regular one and not a captain. There was talk of them trying to find a brand new captain. Fat Tinkerbell still had no idea why they had lowered Angel Guy's and Weed Guy's ranks at once. Angel Guy just said he didn't want to be a supervisor any longer, but that seemed like a lie to Fat Tinkerbell. But maybe it was simply the truth in reality. I guess we'll never know. Some things are just left unknown, forever. As this was all going down, something new had happened. It appeared as though the whole video thing had ended. Weed Guy, who was her direct little boss and teacher, wasn't mentioning it either. Soon, however, Fat Tinkerbell noticed that Mr. Robocop began following her again. He'd always follow everyone around the maze. All his little employees, the Fat Tinkerbells, the Chinas, the Bear Boys, the Diet Cokes, etc., etc., etc. In the past, when Fat Tinkerbell was trying to figure out if he only followed her alone around at work, she had asked all those employees if he did the same to them. They all had said that, yes, he follows everyone around. You're not special, he doesn't have a crush on you. Just kidding, they never said it like that. But you get the point. They just said that Robo does follow them around. Regardless, this time, the following towards Fat Tinkerbell became absolutely insane, invasive, intrusive. Absolutely nosy. Borderline stalker-like. Fat Tinkerbell had gotten used to Robocop being a bit of a nosy supervisor with everyone by that time. So when this insane level of stalking began, it was beyond overwhelming. Fat Tinkerbell started noticing Robocop almost absolutely at every turn this time. Every last turn and edge of the maze that exists. When she had to drive, he'd take the other car and drive by her for as long as she'd drive. He followed her wherever that list had her posted at. Sometimes he'd even climb entire floors by foot to find Fat Tinkerbell. She had noticed him enter the building through the bottom and climb all the way to the top in a matter of minutes. Even places where she had decided to hide from him. He'd choose to follow her to posts across the street even. Fat Tinkerbell began to feel a type of paranoia. Robocop wore a green helmet when riding inside the maze. So Fat Tinkerbell began to feel paranoid every time she heard wheels or would see something green pass her by. At times, it felt almost as if he had a tracker on her. Sometimes he'd do it so fast to the point it felt as though he was literally teleporting. She truly wondered if he was an alien who could teleport. It honestly felt like that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where Jack Sparrow is watching Davy Jones through a telescope. Davy Jones then sees Jack Sparrow, and once Jack lowered the telescope, Davy Jones was right in front of him. That's exactly how it felt with Robocop and his weird crazy following throughout the afternoon. Now, let's keep in mind that these two characters never spoke to one another, never were friends, never had conversations. Not from the beginning of time, not during the video chaos, and not to the present situation in this story. During this stalking behavior through the days, Robocop would now stare at Fat Tinkerbell completely different. It was not like how he'd follow her in Story 5. This time it was different. The stare was like that of comedy or like that of him knowing something about her. It was a stare with a smile in it. Fat Tinkerbell believed it had been because of the video drama that had gone down. It was interesting since Fat Tinkerbell had believed that Robocop would have been pissed regarding that gossiping drama that involved him as well. That he would have had something to say. That he'd react with fury, with anger, with even a reply. But no, nothing. He knew the gossip involved him. However, he had nothing to say to Fat Tinkerbell. Even the days that she had to work alone with him or in his presence. As soon as he returned from vacation, there was no confrontation or even words that he could have said or done, of which took place at all. Fat Tinkerbell was glad that there was no fury or anger from his part at the very least. She had already felt enormous amounts of embarrassment, shame and humiliation all at once when the king confronted her, as well as when Weed Guy informed her of the video. When in Robocop's presence, there was still feelings of shame, fault, and even uneasiness. Aside from all her feelings for him as a crush. Feelings of lust, of desire, of pure attraction. When the nonsensical, abusive form of supervision began, Fat Tinkerbell had after a while come to a realization. Something that was mentioned at the end of the last story. She has now realized that truly, maybe, this Robocop character has now noticed, realized, become aware of. That literally Fat Tinkerbell has a crush on him. That she had a crush on him. Secret revealed. Oh no! It appeared as though Fat Tinkerbell's big secret has come out to the light. The extreme following, the weird little smiles, the staring, the silence, the climbing levels in order to see someone, the entire ordeal. It appeared as if honestly and literally RoboCop was now aware of Fat Tinkerbell's true feelings for him. Fat Tinkerbell, as she came to this realization, wondered if the following and smiling was out of bullying. Or out of curiosity. There was no knowing, since the same behavior had happened when Harry Potter was angry at her in the past. And RoboCop tried to bully her with the following her in the same way. The difference was that this time it was extreme. And in the past there was no smiling and comedic staring. RoboCop probably figured it out with ease because not only is he a hot guy that gets women like they're nothing. So he'd know if a girl, woman, would be secretly interested in him. Secretly have feelings for him, or secretly is attracted to him. He was old enough to have had, beyond multiple experiences and a multitude of ex-partners and ex-lovers, and everything in between. He had children, for crying out loud. It might have been very easy for him to figure out if a woman secretly wanted him. Aside from that, Fat Tinkerbell's actions against Green-Eyed Snake had demonstrated jealousy. And jealousy points to Fat Tinkerbell likes RoboCop. It was really clear. Fat Tinkerbell had foolishly left her fingerprints all over the crime scene. Even if Fat Tinkerbell wanted to say in her mind that, "No, I've done it out of revenge. I've done it to show you that you are a nasty employee who flirts with everyone. No, I've done it out of me showing you that I now know your dirty little secrets." It's still, no matter what, made Fat Tinkerbell look nosy, and look nosy for a reason, that reason being jealousy, and jealousy being interest. It was very easy to connect those dots as well. And there was one last factor, Green-Eyed Snake. If RoboCop and Green-Eyed Snake got along and were besties who told each other their dirty little secrets, well, Green-Eyed Snake herself might have now concluded that Fat Tinkerbell is jealous and interested in RoboCop as she once was. She threw Fat Tinkerbell under the bus, making her look like a fool who exposed herself. In reality, Fat Tinkerbell did in fact have a crush on RoboCop, and the most insane attraction she's ever felt, but Fat Tinkerbell would not admit it and would deny it till the end. If RoboCop now knew or believed that Fat Tinkerbell likes him, using his F-boy powers, well, did he like her back? Did he not like her back? Was he teasing or messing with her? Fat Tinkerbell had previous traumas and bad experiences with men bullying her, belittling her, and even insulting or avoiding her. If they found that she likes them or wants something romantic with them, Fat Tinkerbell didn't look like the most beautiful Barbie. She had experiences where her male crush would push her against a desk in front of everyone in middle school. Or experiences where her crush would throw a football at her face as hard as he could, just because he knew she liked him and such. Experiences where her crush would avoid sitting by her while saying comments such as "ehoo" during those interactions. Experiences where her own sibling at the time wouldn't be her friend because she thought she was weird, and so on. Experiences where Fat Tinkerbell had to be all alone and have zero friends for months on end during her school life. Most likely experiences that someone like Green-Eyed Snake would not have had. Experiences someone like Barbie 101 or any of the Help Center Barbies would not have had in their pasts. So yes, Fat Tinkerbell was willing to avoid showing all her cards or ever confessing her true feelings or even desires to the man of her dreams. It was a very sad and tragic story to her past. Regardless, at this job she made the promise to deny any of that, and if asked, it would be the story of her doing it out of revenge. She would invent the story that she hates RoboCop and can't stand him. That she was exposing them both out of malice. From there on out, she'd argue in her mind that RoboCop is a bad, evil person, that she hates RoboCop, that she did the gossiping out of revenge and such. If anyone would ask her or call her out on her crush, those are the points she'd bring up. As the days continue, the following and stalking had become insane. Honestly, it was flattering to Fat Tinkerbell at first, even though she felt embarrassed by it too. However, the more this man continued the popping up out of nowhere and the walking past staring, and the driving by her to stare at her, and the location checks, and the insane climbing floors to see her, the more paranoid and absolutely terrified Fat Tinkerbell became. Her crush turned into a bit of a hot creep. Who knows if that type of character in the real world even exists? What a combination! Hot creep or hot stalker. That's truly what RoboCop was at this point. An extremely hot creep. Fat Tinkerbell wondered if he had some type of mental problem at that point. Does he not have multiple women chasing after him? She'd wonder. Why is he going crazy following me? She'd ask herself. Fat Tinkerbell knew deep down that she was a little red Fat Tinkerbell. She was well aware of her physical appearance. Was it possible that RoboCop, the hottest man on Earth, was into Fat Tinkerbells? She'd question. It could have been a rare possibility that RoboCop liked larger, heavier women as well as regular women. Regardless, every time Fat Tinkerbell liked a handsome or hot man, those men would always back off and avoid Fat Tinkerbell as much as they could, as a form of rejection. Hence why Fat Tinkerbell was still a virgin at 21. Fat Tinkerbell came up with the conclusion that it was impossible for RoboCop to ever like her at her size. And that all the extreme following was simply a form of teasing and messing with Fat Tinkerbell. If RoboCop now assumed that she had a crush on him, then he'd play with her and go along with her attraction to him. Reciprocate the feelings she had for him as a way to joke and mess with her. It was very possible that Green-Eyed Snake said to RoboCop, "Hey, that female soldier of yours has a crush on you and you should go get her." So then it must have been an inside joke between Green-Eyed Snake and RoboCop. The entire reciprocating of attraction, the whole chase thing that was taking place was all a joke between Green-Eyed Snake and RoboCop. At least that's what Fat Tinkerbell assumed. Those two characters were still at the same site working. Just that one of them was in a help center station and the other was a soldier where the office was somewhere else inside that very maze. Fat Tinkerbell at the time decided to completely avoid the help center. She made the promise to never again go inside of there and never speak with RoboCop. A promise to continue her ignoring behavior towards him and her distance behavior towards him. She actually had very negative feelings towards many of those characters. She didn't trust absolutely none of those males. The Harry Potter, RoboCop, Weed Guy, etc., etc., etc. She once got along with Diet Coke, but then Diet Coke chose to become RoboCop's best friend instead. Angel Guy was the only sweet one there at the time. Fast forward a couple weeks and Fat Tinkerbell had begun a bit of a friendship with Weed Guy, who was now her direct manager. She realized that she could get more information about RoboCop from Weed Guy, who was like RoboCop's nerdy twin brother. Fat Tinkerbell also chose to be a bit close with Diet Coke to again obtain information on RoboCop. After a while of talking and getting along with Weed Guy, Fat Tinkerbell had mentioned the extreme following and stalking RoboCop was doing to her. So then Fat Tinkerbell chose to tell absolutely all her closest coworkers that RoboCop was following her like crazy. She told Diet Coke, she told Bear Boy, she told Angel Guy. Angel Guy again, now being a regular coworker. She told China Boy, and others. She even had told Boss Battle, who was the scariest, meanest manager of them all and hated everyone except for Fat Tinkerbell. She had told so much people that RoboCop was basically now exposed to everyone and his closest friends as a creepy stalker. If RoboCop was gonna play her, and play along to pretend to like her. At her weight. Fat Tinkerbell wasn't taking any chances. And was now about to expose him. The following week, as soon as RoboCop had to work with Fat Tinkerbell again, Fat Tinkerbell noticed that RoboCop was not following her any longer. The entire situation had stopped. Fat Tinkerbell couldn't believe it. There wasn't any sounds of RoboCop's scooter approaching. There was not another soldier vehicle in her area as she drove. There was no constant checks any longer, the entire situation was now gone. OMG. Fat Tinkerbell still felt paranoid at first, thinking it was some type of joke. But after a while it truly seemed to have stopped. She still was a bit paranoid and feeling uneasy every time she'd see something green surrounding her or hearing scooter sounds from the shoppers. Fat Tinkerbell felt glad that the RoboCop had stopped with the following around. She felt a bit sad and unattractive because of it as well. She did at times hope that all the following meant that RoboCop liked her too and had a crush on her. But truly it could have all been a joke and intimidation tactic. When realistically speaking. So then Fat Tinkerbell had to remind herself that the entire following was a type of tease and a joke. And not at all a form of romantic pursuit. but as intense feelings of attraction for RoboCop were. Fat Tinkerbell did feel upset that RoboCop had stopped following her. Every time Fat Tinkerbell had to work under RoboCop, she felt excited. She looked forward to working under RoboCop and under his command. She looked forward to seeing him and feeling his presence. She was happy to just be able to see him day in and day out. What truly attracted her the most was the anticipation of it all. Every time that she knew she had RoboCop as the shift manager, it was almost a dream come true. She loved that he would go out of his way to go almost through the entire maze, just to find her. To have to climb floors of a building just to find her. Had RoboCop just been messing with Fat Tinkerbell, she still enjoyed and lived for that type of attention. That type of pursuit. An unbelievably crazy type of romantic pursuit. Even if it was fake. Fat Tinkerbell would even tell her experiences with RoboCop to her sister. And she'd explain that the experience was like that of a live game of hide and seek. Sweet, terrifying, fun, exciting, abnormal, crazy, and horrifying. Feelings of pure paranoia would take place, but also feelings of excitement and thrill. When Fat Tinkerbell had decided to expose the RoboCop and his following to his friends. Deep down, the reason she had done it was to see if probably he would then tell his friends about how he likes her. Or admit that he is interested in her romantically somehow. She thought that he'd be cornered into confessing his feelings for her. Instead, he had just stopped with the following overall. Low-key, the exposing of the extreme following had also been a bit of a plan to find out if RoboCop liked Fat Tinkerbell back. But again, there was no admitting, no answers at all. Whenever Fat Tinkerbell and RoboCop were inside the office together, it would be all awkward and quiet. RoboCop never had anything to say. Not even the most mundane, boring thing. Each soldier would gather their things and get to work. Pretty normal boring job scenario. Fat Tinkerbell would still behave with complete indifference towards RoboCop. Part of the reason she wanted the stalking to stop was also because she's overweight. Fat Tinkerbell didn't want RoboCop to look at her grotesque body. This is also the reason she hated being inside the office with him, because she was so close to him. Live and in person. Fat Tinkerbell truly wanted to know what Weed Guy, his closest twin bro at work, had told him. What had Weed Guy or Diet Coke have said to RoboCop, and in what manner to cause him to stop? Fat Tinkerbell had never been so intrigued. Did RoboCop throw a tantrum? Did he get angry? Did he shame Fat Tinkerbell and talk smack about her? What had actually been said in such a conversation? The answers to those questions, however, were never discovered. Weed Guy and Fat Tinkerbell were cool with each other at the time. But they weren't best friends where they'd tell each other their little secrets. It was all a weird, she said, he said situation. Not even the king was involved in such BS drama. The king shouldn't have been involved anyhow. He protected the RoboCop like if he were his own son. It was best that Fat Tinkerbell approached this one in a Gossip Girl fashion. Telling RoboCop's closest friends, who were the same people Fat Tinkerbell felt comfortable with. Fast forward almost 2 weeks. And Fat Tinkerbell was trying to get used to the idea of RoboCop no longer following her around. And her being completely alone where her own manager wouldn't be around to see if anything happens to her. She felt lonely and like the most single person alive. Maybe 2 or 3 days had gone by, and Fat Tinkerbell accepted the fact that she caused this all by herself. That RoboCop would no longer bother her. When suddenly she noticed RoboCop once again. Although he was no longer teleporting to be near her and by her. This time she noticed this guy watching her from a faraway distance. As soon as he met her gaze, he looked away and moved along. From there on out, RoboCop would stalk Fat Tinkerbell from far-off places. From a far-away distance. This man only needed binoculars. Fat Tinkerbell felt glad that she could still see RoboCop herself, and that she could still get that sweet attention from him. Even though her plan of telling on him failed because he didn't admit to a crush or whatever. RoboCop decided to watch Fat Tinkerbell from a faraway area. And so Fat Tinkerbell kept her eye candy still active. From there on out it would be a game of Spot the RoboCop. Each and every time Fat Tinkerbell noticed RoboCop hiding in the distance looking at her, RoboCop would immediately turn the other way and continue walking. Fat Tinkerbell didn't know what to think of this. Was all this a confirmation that RoboCop likes her back? Was he now watching from far-off distances as a way to show that he likes her back and wants to continue to see her? Or was it still the same intimidation and joke tactic game that Fat Tinkerbell assumed he was doing from the start? After this, Fat Tinkerbell did not say anything. She kept her hot creep that watches from far away. End of story. Well guys, that was the real-life, true story experience by the author of Mind Games. If you haven't read the previous stories, I suggest you do so in order to understand the characters and the storyline. Share this story with whoever needs it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you've experienced something like this, please leave your comments down below. If you've ever crushed on your boss or your own bully, just leave your thoughts on this whole situation down below in the comments. You can find me on BitChute under the same username. You can also find me in DeviantArt under the same username. My second YouTube is EmyyWolf Productions. All other links down in the description. Thanks for watching.